Chapter 1. Introduction to the Ice Wall Mystery. They say Earth is a globe, floating in a vast expanse of space, encircled by stars and satellites. But what if that image, so familiar, so accepted, was incomplete? What if the southernmost place on Earth wasn't a continent at all, but a colossal boundary? According to the Antarctica Wall Theory, we've been misled, not just in our geography, but in our entire understanding of the world itself. Antarctica, they argue, is not a landmass tucked beneath the globe. It is the wall, a frozen barrier encircling the known world, miles high and virtually impassable. Beyond it, unknown lands, civilizations untouched by modern society. Or perhaps the true Earth, hidden from us by design. This theory isn't new. It has simmered on the edges of mainstream thought for decades, surfacing in whispers about forbidden maps, strange Antarctic expeditions, and the secrecy of global treaties. To believers, the idea of Antarctica as a massive ice ring isn't just speculative, it's evidence of a grand deception. The rise of digital mapping, amateur sleuths, and alternative historians has only fanned the flames. YouTubers analyze old nautical charts, satellite anomalies, and testimonies from long-forgotten explorers. Reddit threads and obscure documentaries propose that early civilizations may have known about the wall, and that global powers are actively suppressing the truth. In this video, we'll explore the origins of this theory, the historical breadcrumbs that fuel it, and the unsettling questions that continue to go unanswered. We'll journey through lost expeditions, geopolitical secrets, and ancient legends, not to prove or disprove the theory, but to understand why, in a world saturated with information, so many people still believe there's something just beyond the edge of the map. Because maybe, just maybe, they're right. Chapter 2. The Flat Earth Revival and Antarctica's Role. For centuries, the concept of a flat Earth was relegated to the footnotes of history, an outdated belief eclipsed by modern science and global exploration. But in recent years, something unexpected happened. The flat Earth theory didn't just survive, it resurfaced, rebranded for the digital age. At the heart of this resurgence lies a question not of shape, but of access. And nowhere is that question more focused than in Antarctica. Modern flat Earth theorists don't just claim that the Earth lacks curvature, they argue that we're enclosed, that what we call the South Pole is in fact a 360-degree ice barrier that encircles our entire known world, a frozen wall, stretching miles high, forming the rim of a massive, enclosed disk. Under this model, the Earth isn't a sphere, it's more like a bowl, and Antarctica is the edge. This idea, they argue, explains why no one is allowed to freely explore the region. It explains why air routes don't cross Antarctica, why the continent remains mostly off-limits to civilians, and why international treaties lock down access in a way that no other region on Earth is subjected to. Flat Earth proponents point to this wall not just as a barrier, but as a hiding place. What's beyond it, they claim, could rewrite human history. Other lands, ancient civilizations, or even the mechanisms that sustain our reality. Some go even further, suggesting this ice ring is not natural at all, but constructed, like the walls of a containment dome. Though mainstream science dismisses these claims, the flat Earth community has continued to grow. Online videos, conferences, and experiments attempt to demonstrate the absence of curvature. But more than any measurement or visual, it's Antarctica that captures the imagination. Because unlike space or the deep ocean, Antarctica is right here, tantalizingly close, and still mostly unknown. And in a world where governments, institutions, and even science itself are increasingly met with skepticism, the ice wall has become the ultimate symbol of concealed truth, a frozen question mark at the edge of the Earth. Chapter 3. Historical Maps and Lost Cartography. Long before satellites and global positioning systems mapped every corner of our planet, the world was a canvas of speculation. Cartographers filled blank spaces with illustrations of sea monsters, unreachable lands, and strange coastlines based on sailors' tales and second-hand accounts. But among these ancient maps are some that continue to stir controversy, charts that seem to depict Antarctica, centuries before it was officially discovered. The Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral, is one of the most cited examples. While much of it details South America and Africa with surprising accuracy, a portion of the map appears to show a southern landmass that some believe resembles Antarctica, free of ice. This, despite Antarctica being officially discovered over 300 years later, and under permanent ice for millennia. How could a 16th-century sailor have charted it? Then there's the Orontius Phineas map from 1531. It shows a large landmass at the bottom of the world, complete with rivers and mountain ranges. Some theorists claim this is not only Antarctica, but Antarctica as it might appear without its icy covering, suggesting that earlier civilizations may have mapped the continent when it was more temperate, or perhaps before it was deliberately hidden. Of course, mainstream historians argue that these maps are misinterpretations, combinations of various known coastlines distorted by artistic guesswork. But wall theorists and alternative historians disagree. They suggest these maps are glimpses of a forgotten age, evidence that ancient navigators may have journeyed beyond the ice ring, reaching lands that are no longer accessible or even acknowledged. More obscure maps also hint at strange landmasses that no longer exist. Terra Australis Incognita, for example, a massive southern continent once believed to balance the northern lands. Was it merely a mistaken theory? Or did early explorers glimpse something that was later removed from public knowledge? Whether these maps are mistakes or messages lost in time, they remind us that the history of exploration is murkier than we like to believe. And when we trace the ink lines of ancient cartographers, we might just be following their footsteps. Chapter 4. The 1940s Expeditions, Byrd and Beyond. In the aftermath of World War II, as the world shifted from global conflict to global control, a curious operation unfolded in the icy silence of the Antarctic frontier. It was called Operation High Jump, and it remains one of the most debated military missions in modern history. Launched in 1946 and led by U.S. Navy Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd, Operation High Jump wasn't a small-scale expedition. It involved over 4,700 personnel, a fleet of ships, aircraft, and a clear objective: to explore and establish a U.S. military presence in Antarctica. Officially, it was framed as a training and research mission. But to many, the scale of the operation suggested something more. Byrd himself was no stranger to the extremes. A seasoned polar explorer, he had flown over the North and South Poles and was revered as a national hero. But after returning from Operation High Jump, Byrd gave a peculiar interview to a Chilean newspaper that has since become legend. In it, he warned of a new threat, one that could come from the polar regions and travel from pole to pole with astonishing speed. That statement set off a wave of speculation. What had Byrd seen? What had his fleet encountered? Conspiracy theorists point to the abrupt end of the operation. Although it was scheduled to last 8 months, it was called off after just a few weeks. The reason given was poor weather conditions. But whispers suggest otherwise. Claims of encounters with unknown craft, strange phenomena, or even a hidden landmass beyond the ice. Some allege Byrd and his team may have discovered a passage through or beyond the Antarctic Wall, only to have their findings suppressed. Others believe the operation was a cover for something deeper, perhaps a confrontation with an ancient force or a civilization protected by the wall. Documents remain classified. First-hand accounts are rare, and Byrd's diaries from that expedition have long been the subject of rumors and redactions. To this day, Operation High Jump remains a curious anomaly in the post-war timeline. a major military deployment to the most desolate region on Earth, with limited explanation and lingering shadows. Whatever Admiral Byrd saw in those frozen wastes, it was enough to haunt his legacy and fuel the Antarctica Wall Theory for generations to come. Chapter 5. The Antarctic Treaty. What are they hiding? In the shadow of World War II, as nations clashed over territory and ideology, something unusual happened. Countries that could barely agree on peace agreed on Antarctica. And in 1959, the Antarctic Treaty was born. At face value, the treaty seems noble, an agreement between 12 nations to preserve Antarctica for peaceful scientific research. It forbids military activity, territorial claims, and resource exploitation. Over the years, more countries joined in. Today, over 50 nations are signatories, making it one of the most widely respected international agreements on the planet. But that's exactly what makes it so suspicious. Why this place? Why this level of cooperation? Why is the most desolate, inhospitable region on Earth treated like a locked vault? Conspiracy theorists argue that the Antarctic Treaty isn't about peace, it's about control. Not of war, but of access. According to the theory, Antarctica is off-limits not to protect it, but to protect us from what lies beyond. No other place on Earth is this heavily restricted. You can't freely travel there, explore wherever you like, or start a business. Independent expeditions are burdened with red tape, constant surveillance, and government escort. Even scientific missions must follow rigid guidelines, often confined to specific, safe zones. To believers in the ice wall theory, this is more than coincidence. It's a containment strategy. They argue the treaty was designed not to foster science, but to enforce secrecy. That something was discovered, perhaps during Operation High Jump or earlier, that required a global cover-up. Whether it's hidden land, an ancient civilization, or evidence that challenges the shape of the Earth itself, the treaty serves as a legal shield to keep curious eyes away. And perhaps the most chilling detail? The treaty has no expiration date. It renews indefinitely. The one region we've never colonized, militarized, or industrialized, locked in a permanent freeze. In a world where land means power and resources mean wealth, Antarctica remains an exception. And that exception raises a simple question. What exactly are they trying to keep us from seeing? Chapter 6. Satellite Anomalies and Blurred Zones. In the age of Google Earth and real-time satellite imaging, it seems nothing on Earth can remain hidden. We can zoom in on the streets of remote villages, watch hurricanes form from orbit, even track wildfires and migrating animals. Yet, curiously, when you turn your gaze toward Antarctica, things begin to blur. Satellite imagery of Antarctica is strangely inconsistent. Some areas are crystal clear, others are pixelated, stretched, or completely obscured. Certain coordinates lead to blank spaces. Others show strange patterns in the ice, unnatural shapes, lines, or shadows that don't match the surrounding environment. And then there are the overlays, patches that appear to be digitally altered, like someone stitched in a cleaner image to hide what was originally there. Mainstream explanations blame data stitching errors, poor lighting conditions, or technical glitches. But conspiracy theorists see something more deliberate: active censorship. They argue these glitches aren't accidents. They're layers, masks, warnings. Zoom in far enough, they say, and you'll notice the algorithm pushes back. The map resists. Images distort just before revealing too much, especially near the coastlines and interior zones supposedly restricted by the Antarctic Treaty. These anomalies have fueled hours of analysis across online forums. Amateur sleuths post coordinates, compare satellite archives, and document the exact spots where the view goes dark. Some claim to have spotted massive structures, grids, domes, entrances carved into the ice. Others swear they've seen heat signatures where no human activity should exist. One popular image allegedly shows a massive circular hole, surrounded by symmetrical ridges, like the entrance to something deep and hidden. Critics dismiss this as pareidolia, seeing patterns where none exist. But believers push back. In a world where surveillance is total and nothing escapes the eye in the sky, why is one place still shrouded in mystery? Perhaps the answer isn't in what we can see, but in what we're not allowed to. Chapter 7. Forbidden Lands and Hidden Civilizations. If Antarctica is not a continent, but a boundary, an encircling wall of ice, then the question becomes immediate and undeniable. What lies beyond it? According to believers in the Antarctica Wall Theory, the answer is both ancient and profound. Beyond the frozen barricade is not just empty wasteland, but land, vast, uncharted, untouched by modern civilization, continents hidden from public knowledge, regions scrubbed from our maps and sealed off from our minds. This idea, while shocking, isn't entirely new. Throughout history, myths and legends have hinted at other worlds beyond the edges of the known Earth. The lost lands of Hyperborea, the sunlit realms of Ultima Thule. Ancient texts from different cultures speak of lands at the edge of the sky, where advanced beings once lived in harmony with the Earth. Could these stories be distorted memories of civilizations that still exist, just out of reach? Some theorists believe these lands are home to descendants of ancient human lineages, free from war, pollution, and control. Others imagine beings with technologies so advanced they could manipulate the climate, bend gravity, or even alter consciousness itself. These civilizations, they argue, are the true keepers of Earth's forgotten history, its real origins. There are even whispers that the lands beyond are not part of our world at all, but separate realms, part of a larger Earth system divided by ice walls and energetic barriers. Each realm with its own sun, its own sky, its own rules. A multiverse, not in space, but here, spread laterally across an Earth we barely understand. Mainstream science calls these ideas absurd. But the theory presses on, not because of what's been proven, but because of what hasn't. The unexplored, the classified, the off-limits. Because the most powerful tool of control isn't the fence, it's convincing people there's nothing on the other side. Chapter 8. Military Activity and No-Fly Zones. While the world sees Antarctica as a frozen wilderness reserved for science, whispers of military involvement never truly went silent. In fact, beneath the silence, something peculiar hums: restricted zones, strange patrols, and the quiet persistence of armed oversight in a place supposedly untouched by conflict. Under the Antarctic Treaty, militarization is banned. No bases, no weapons, no war games. And yet, nations continue to station personnel there. Military aircraft are still flown in. Radar installations, logistics hubs, and surveillance tech continue to operate. Why? To believers in the Antarctica Wall Theory, the answer is obvious. They're guarding something. And one of the most mysterious tools in their arsenal is airspace restriction. Large swaths of Antarctic airspace are designated as no-fly zones, not just because of weather or geography, but by directive. Civilian aircraft are banned. Flight paths are rerouted. Even satellites are sometimes asked to limit imaging over certain coordinates. Pilots have reported GPS disruptions, navigational anomalies, and abrupt course redirections when approaching certain sectors. And then there are the stories. Whistleblowers have claimed to witness black-budget operations near the ice shelf, unmarked aircraft, underground facilities, encounters with aircraft being tailed or turned around without explanation. Some have spoken of being warned, detained, or debriefed after accidentally breaching restricted zones. A few haven't spoken at all. If there's nothing to hide in Antarctica, why maintain such rigid control over who can fly where and what they can see? Some believe the military presence is about containment, not protection, that the ice wall hides more than land, that there may be structures, entrances, or technologies embedded within the cliffs, something that governments agreed long ago should never be seen by the public. The irony is chilling. The coldest place on Earth may be the most heavily guarded, not with fences, but with silence, not with walls, but with invisible lines in the sky. And when you cross them, you vanish. Chapter 9. Testimonies and Whistleblowers. Officially, Antarctica is cold, quiet, and uninhabited, visited only by scientists and support crews. But unofficially, stories trickle out. They don't come through press releases or government briefings. They come in fragments, from whispered conversations, anonymous interviews, and redacted reports. Stories from the people who were there. Whistleblowers and alleged insiders have surfaced over the decades, some credible, some fringe, but all sharing a strangely consistent thread. Something is being hidden beneath the ice. One retired naval technician claimed that during a routine satellite relay operation, he intercepted classified transmissions referencing structures beneath the ice shelf and unauthorized landings. He said the files were marked with NATO codes, but were abruptly pulled from access after 48 hours. He never saw them again. A former pilot said he was contracted to deliver equipment to a scientific base. Upon arrival, he was rerouted mid-flight to a temporary station, not on any map. The base, he claims, wasn't staffed by scientists, but by armed personnel. He saw large, half-buried metallic domes protruding from the ice and was told to turn around immediately after offloading his cargo. One of the most striking accounts came from a radio operator stationed at the South Pole in the early 2000s. He described strange signals, bursts of rhythmic interference like encrypted pulses, coming from deep within the continent, in areas supposedly abandoned. When he inquired, he was reassigned. Then he disappeared from all digital records. And yet, no one talks openly. Those who try to go public are often dismissed as conspiracy theorists, mentally unwell, or discredited professionally. Others simply recant and vanish from view. A few, ominously, have died under mysterious circumstances, accidents, sudden illness, or alleged suicides. To believers in the Antarctica Wall Theory, these aren't coincidences, they're patterns, pieces of a puzzle that the world isn't meant to solve. These testimonies may be fragmented, unverifiable, and often buried under layers of misinformation, but together they form a chorus. Not proof, but pressure. Not facts, but signals. Whispers rising from the ice. Chapter 10. Polar Myths from Ancient Cultures. Long before satellites mapped the Earth and treaties sealed off the South Pole, ancient cultures whispered of mysterious lands near, or beyond, the ice. These weren't vague fables. They were persistent, detailed stories passed through generations, describing regions of radiant light, hidden wisdom, and gods who lived where the horizon faded into white. One of the most enduring legends is Hyperborea, a fabled land far to the north, according to Greek mythology. It was said to be a place of eternal spring, where the sun never set, and its inhabitants lived in peace, free from war and aging. The Greeks spoke of it as real, not symbolic. Explorers like Pindar and Herodotus referenced it, and some believed it could be reached by sailing into the polar wind. Was it a memory of a polar paradise, or a distorted echo of something once accessible beyond the walls? Similarly, the ancient Hindu texts speak of Shambhala, a hidden land located in the farthest reaches of the earth, inaccessible to outsiders. It was said to be ruled by advanced beings, steeped in cosmic wisdom, waiting for a time to re-emerge and guide humanity. Tibetan monks believed it could be reached only through spiritual enlightenment, or through secret mountain passes hidden within frozen terrain. Then there is Ultima Thule, a land referenced by Roman explorers as the edge of the known world. It lay beyond the north wind, past ice and fog. Thule was said to be both distant and luminous, otherworldly and real, a land of giants, ancient monuments, and sky phenomena. The Norse, the Celts, and even medieval cartographers echoed its myth with startling consistency. Across Mesoamerican traditions, some accounts suggest that gods and star beings came from a white land beneath the world, across cold oceans, bringing technology, agriculture, and language. In these myths, the poles weren't just desolate zones, they were doorways. To believers in the Antarctica Wall Theory, these legends aren't fantasy, they're fragments, clues scattered across cultures, pointing to a forgotten truth, that ancient peoples knew more about Earth's boundaries and what lies beyond than we've been led to believe. And perhaps these myths endure not because they're false, but because they've never been fully erased. Chapter 11. Antarctica in Popular Media. For most people, Antarctica exists only in textbooks or satellite photos, a place so remote, so lifeless, that it rarely enters our imagination. And yet, when you start to look, you'll find it everywhere. From classic science fiction to modern blockbusters, Antarctica has become a recurring setting for hidden labs, alien discoveries, ancient technologies, and end-of-the-world secrets. It's the perfect backdrop, vast, untouched, and cloaked in ice. A blank slate for storytelling, or a mirror of something deeper we've sensed all along. In John Carpenter's The Thing, a shape-shifting entity is discovered beneath the Antarctic ice, awakening paranoia and madness. In Ridley Scott's Prometheus, ancient clues lead scientists to a remote, frozen world that feels eerily like our own polar frontier. Even X-Files episodes and Stargate I explored Antarctic anomalies, devices buried deep beneath the ice, guarded by governments, activated by unknown forces. In video games, Antarctica often serves as the hidden level, the final frontier. It's where black sites hide forbidden tech, and ancient ruins whisper forgotten truths. Call of Duty, Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, all have used Antarctica as a canvas for the extraordinary. Even children's films subtly reinforce the mystique. The edge of the map, the bottom of the world, where things change and reality bends. It's rarely front and center, but always present, always watching. To believers in the Antarctica Wall Theory, this is more than coincidence. It's conditioning, a slow drip of imagery and narrative that both reveals and disguises the truth. By turning it into fiction, the idea becomes safe, dismissible, hidden in plain sight. But the question remains, why does our collective imagination return, again and again, to the one place we're told not to go? Perhaps because, deep down, we know the story isn't over. We've just been watching it unfold on screen. Chapter 12. Climate Science versus the Ice Wall. For centuries, Antarctica has been the subject of scientific fascination. Its ice cores hold secrets of Earth's atmosphere from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Its shifting glaciers are studied by climatologists, geologists, and oceanographers from around the world. It is, in many ways, the cold heart of climate science. And yet, for believers in the Antarctica Wall Theory, Much of that science feels like a carefully constructed distraction. According to mainstream climatology, Antarctica is a continent, roughly the size of the US and Mexico combined, covered by an ice sheet that averages over a mile thick. Scientists travel to well-documented bases, drill into ancient layers of ice, and monitor how the continent is melting as global temperatures rise. There is no mention of a wall, no hidden land, no forbidden zones. But theorists argue that this science is only surface deep, both literally and figuratively. They point to how satellite images of the continent often differ from standard maps, how early 20th century reports from explorers like Byrd described features that no longer appear on official charts, how climate research tends to focus only on specific areas, especially around research stations, leaving vast sections of the ice untouched and unexplored. Some ask, if this is the most climate-sensitive region on the planet, why is so much of it still inaccessible? Why are major expeditions so centralized? Why are independent scientific teams so heavily regulated? To those skeptical of the official narrative, climate science has become a shield, truth wrapped in technicalities. They don't deny that ice is melting, but they question what lies beneath, or beyond. Could the focus on melting glaciers be a way to explain visual anomalies, like collapsing ice cliffs revealing structures? Could shifting coastlines be exposing something that can't be explained within the standard model? Mainstream science calls this dangerous misinformation, but theorists believe the real danger is in silence, in assuming that all is known, that there is no mystery left. After all, climate science tells us what Antarctica is, but never asks what it might be. Chapter 13. Digital Age Discoveries and Map Leaks. In the age of the Internet, mystery no longer dies in the shadows. It spreads in the open. As access to information exploded, so too did a new kind of explorer. No longer constrained by oceans or governments, these modern cartographers navigate pixels, not waves. And what they've found, if you believe them, could change everything we know about the Earth. 4 years now, digital investigators have claimed to uncover inconsistencies in online map services, Google Earth, NASA satellite overlays, even obscure Soviet-era archives. Blurred zones, repeated textures, entire sections of the Antarctic coastline replaced with duplicate ice fields. Some anomalies appear only in older versions, quietly edited away in later updates. Then there are the map leaks, images posted anonymously to forums and message boards. Low resolution, grainy, often watermarked. But the implications are profound. One map, allegedly scanned from a forgotten university archive, showed Antarctica as a ring, surrounding a large, central landmass labeled simply Terra Incognita. Another, posted in a whistleblower drop, showed flight corridors looping far out into what should have been empty sea, ending at unexplained waypoints beyond the ice shelf. Some of these leaks were quickly dismissed, debunked again, and buried under piles of fact-checks. But others lingered, discussed in hushed threads, reconstructed in 3D, cross-referenced with old expedition logs and naval records. Even stranger, occasionally, these posts disappear, not because of deletion, but removal, accounts banned, domains taken offline, images wiped from archive crawlers as if they were never uploaded. In the conspiracy world, this is called selective erasure, not just hiding the truth, but proving that it was too true to allow. Skeptics scoff at this, of course. They say map errors happen. That censorship is often algorithmic, not sinister. But believers in the Antarctica Wall Theory see a pattern, digital breadcrumbs leading to forbidden knowledge. The old map-makers once labeled uncharted areas with sea monsters. Today, they label them with blur. And for those willing to zoom in, those who still believe in the edges of the Earth, it's not the lack of evidence that keeps the theory alive. It's the evidence that keeps going missing. Chapter 14. The Psychological Allure of Hidden Worlds. Not every belief is born from evidence. Some arise from a deeper place, a feeling, a yearning, a quiet suspicion that the world we've been shown isn't the whole picture. The Antarctica Wall Theory, like many fringe ideas, isn't just about ice or maps or treaties. It's about something more ancient, more human. It's about wonder. Throughout history, people have been drawn to the edge of maps, the edge of forests, the edge of what we're allowed to know. Myths were not created because people lacked imagination, but because they had too much of it, and because somewhere inside, we want there to be more. The idea of a hidden land beyond an icy wall resonates with something primal. It echoes Eden, Atlantis, El Dorado, a paradise withheld. It's a story older than science, that someone, somewhere, took something from us, and that if we could only see what lies beyond the veil, it would all make sense. In a world governed by screens and simulations, hidden truths have become a modern form of spirituality. For many, the idea that there's a secret realm beyond Antarctica is not about geography, it's about meaning. A reason to look closer. A reason to ask questions in a world that discourages them. Psychologists have explored this phenomenon, the draw of the forbidden, the comfort in believing there's more than meets the eye, the power of a narrative that explains our confusion, our dissatisfaction, our sense that something isn't quite right. Governments lie. Corporations manipulate. Histories are revised. So when someone says, there's something they're not telling us, it no longer sounds paranoid. It sounds plausible. And in that space, between skepticism and hope, theories like the Antarctica Wall take root. Maybe we don't believe the Earth is flat. Maybe we don't believe in ancient civilizations beyond the ice. But maybe we want to, because it means there's still a frontier. Still a secret worth chasing. Still a story we're a part of. Chapter 15. The Ongoing Mystery. Why it won't go away. In a world driven by satellites, data, and constant connectivity, the idea that something as massive as Antarctica could still harbor secrets might seem absurd. And yet, this theory refuses to fade. In fact, the mystery only seems to deepen with time. Why? It's not just about maps, treaties, or the strange silence surrounding certain regions. It's about trust, or rather, the growing lack of it. Across the globe, confidence in governments, institutions, and even science is unraveling. People feel lied to, excluded from the truth, or distracted by surface-level explanations. In that environment, a theory like the Antarctica Wall doesn't just survive, it thrives. The notion of a great ice barrier encircling the known world is more than geographical speculation. It becomes symbolic, a line in the snow that separates the world we're allowed to see from the one we're not. To believers, it represents all that's been hidden, by design or by accident. A forgotten past. Forbidden lands. Maybe even the keys to understanding who we really are. And that's the point. The theory persists not because it's proven, but because the questions it raises feel more honest than the answers we're given. Why is access so tightly controlled? Why are certain data streams censored? Why do expeditions vanish into silence? Why do historical anomalies get dismissed instead of explored? Perhaps we're not meant to take the ice wall literally. Perhaps it's a metaphor for boundaries, political, intellectual, spiritual, that we've been told not to cross. But for millions, it's both, a wall of ice and a wall of control. This theory won't go away because it taps into something deeper than skepticism. It stirs longing, a hunger to rediscover the edge, to peel back the curtain, to push beyond the horizon, to find out, once and for all, what lies beyond the wall. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly why it was built.